What is going on, everyone? My name is Anson. In this tutorial, you're going to learn how to create a role assign feature on Discord using Discord buttons. The way that this works is you're going to have a message that is going to be sent one time in a specific channel. Usually the roles channel is where it is, right? And you're going to have that message have buttons on there. And whenever you click on a button, it's going to give you a role that exists on the server. So right now, I don't have any roles. If I go ahead and click on the blue button, it's going to go ahead and say the blue role was added to you. And I can go ahead and dismiss this message. Only I can see that message. And you can see that I had the blue role. If I want to remove the blue role, I can just click on it again and it'll get rid of it for me. If I want to add it again, I can add it again. I can also add other roles too, like the red role. Okay. And you can see that it's being added right over there. So that is going to be pretty much it for what we're going to be doing. So hopefully you all enjoy this video. I have a base project over here that's already been set up already. So if you want to actually get the code for this exact specific, like if you want to get this exact specific template, you can just go on the GitHub link. The link is in the description. Just make sure you switch over to the sample code branch, not the master branch, the sample code branch. So that way you get the basic code, and then you can just follow along with the tutorial. Or if you just want the final version, it's on GitHub, so go ahead and do that, whatever you prefer. But if you want to follow along, you can just get the code from GitHub. Okay. I already have a lot of the basic stuff set up already. The only thing that we're focusing on is, of course, handling the interaction create event and implementing the actual logic to assign the role to the user. So I'm not going to cover all of the prerequisites of this project. All right, so the first thing that we'll need to do is we'll need to go ahead into our server, and we need to get the ID of the channel that we want to send the message in. Okay, and keep in mind that you only need to send this message one time. So let's go ahead and go to our roles channel. So I have a roles channel over here. I'm going to copy the ID, and I'm going to go ahead and inside the ready event, let me make sure I'm not running my bot right now. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go into the ready event, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fetch the channel. So I'm going to do const channel equals, and let's do client dot fetch. I'm going to pass in the ID here. Now I think actually if you have intent enabled, you can actually just, instead of fetching the channel, I'm pretty sure you could probably just get it from the cache. I think because we already have the guild's intent enabled, that should include guild channels. So we can go ahead and actually try that out real quick. So instead of using .fetch, because that is going to have to hit the API, we can do cache.get. I think this might work. We'll have to try this out. And if it doesn't, it's fine. We'll just fetch the channel. It's okay. So let's go ahead and run our bot. npm run start :dev. That's a script. Okay. And you can see that right over here, it says that bot is online and we have it. So we're actually able to get the text channel from the cache, which is good. That means that we don't have to fetch the API, which is going to slow down our ready event. Okay, but if you want to do it both ways or either one of the, it's up to you. But I just think that using the get method is a lot better because it's a lot faster because it's already cached already. Okay, so it literally takes literally all one time to get the data from the map or the collection. Now what we want to do next is we want to go ahead and send a message to the channel once we have retrieved the channel. So let me just go ahead and exit my bot real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and reference the channel variable, and I'm going to call the send method. And we're going to want to send a message with the components, with the message components. And in our case, we're going to be attaching buttons to the message. Okay. Now, if you want to send an embed message, you can send an embed message. I'm just going to send a string, and I'll just go ahead and say select your role by clicking on a button. And again, you can just do embeds if you want to. I'm not going to do that. Okay. So we have our content. And now to attach the message components, we just have to set the components property, and this is going to be an array. Okay, and we basically need to add our buttons, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to need to create an action row because buttons need to be inside an action row. Okay, and we're going to use the action row builder. So this is a class that's going to come from the Discord.js package. So let's import that, and let's go ahead and create an instance of action row builder. So inside the components array, we're going to create an instance of action row builder by using the new keyword. So new action row builder, parentheses, and then we're going to go ahead and call the set components method. And inside set components method, we're going to go ahead and add all the buttons that we want. And you can only have a max of 5 buttons for each action row. So we'll just add 5 buttons, okay? So we're going to use the button builder, so we can import that from the Discord.js package as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an instance of that button builder. So new button builder. And then we're going to go ahead and set a couple of properties. So the first property we'll set is the custom ID. This is very important because the custom ID is going to allow us to know which button the user interacted with. So make sure that if you have multiple button interactions, you set the ID of each button unique, okay? Because if you have buttons with similar custom IDs, or if you have buttons with the same custom ID, I'm not sure if you can even have that, but it will cause conflicts, okay? So just make sure you have different custom IDs. So I'll just set the custom ID of this to blue, which will represent the blue role. I'm then going to go ahead and set the label. So this is what the user will see. This is like basically the display text on the button. So I'll just say blue. And then we'll go ahead and set the style. And I'm going to import the button style enum from the Discord.js package. So this will allow us to set the style of the button. So let's reference button style dot, and then we're just going to set all the buttons to the primary button. Okay, and that should be pretty much it. So let's just copy and paste this a couple of times. So I'll do 5 buttons. Let's go in here. Here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, and let's just change this up. So let's do red. So let's do blue, red, green, pink, and let's do purple. And obviously you can do whatever you want. It's up to you. You don't have to follow exactly the values that I'm typing. Okay, but we have 5 buttons. Okay, so that should be pretty much it. Let's go ahead and start up the bot now, and we should see that in our text channel the message will send. So let's go ahead and run the bot. Okay, there we go. Select your role by clicking on a button. So now that the bot has sent the message, let me just go ahead and exit the bot, and I'll go ahead and just I'll literally just delete this whole thing and remove this whole part because we won't need it again. I would suggest that you actually make this a command feature, so that way if something ever happens, you can always just like resend the message again. But yeah, you can just add that into a command. I'll let you all take care of that yourself. But let's just go ahead and continue on with the video. So now what we need to do next is we need to listen to the interaction create event, because whenever we interact with these buttons, right, it's going to fire an interaction create event. And that's the way that we're going to figure out which button that the user clicked on. So let's go back to the code, and let's go ahead and let me just remove. Actually, I won't, you know what, let me do this. I'm not going to remove this because I want you all to have access to this. So I'm not going to remove it. I'll leave it here so that you all can have for later. I'm not sure why I thought it would be a good idea to delete it. But anyways, let's go ahead and do this. So let's reference the client object and let's listen to the interaction create event by calling the on method and passing in interaction create. We'll pass in a callback function which takes in one parameter, which is the interaction object. And what we want to do is, because we're working with button interactions, we're going to check to see if the interaction is a button. And we can do this by calling the isButton method on the interaction object. So if it is a button, then we're going to continue. Okay. So what do we do next? Well, now we need to know which button the user clicked on. And remember, the reason why we need to set the custom ID is not only is it mandatory, but it allows us to also distinguish which button the user clicked on. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to check the custom ID property of the interaction, because the interaction object has this custom ID property. Okay, so what we're going to do next inside the if condition, so if the interaction is a button, then we're going to go ahead and get the role from the guild, because we want to obviously verify that the role does exist before we do anything else. Because if you write code without verifying things, it's going to break, and then it's going to be really unstable code, and that's not good practice. So the first thing that we'll need to do is obviously check to see if the role exists. Now we need to also get our role IDs from the server as well. And to do that, you can just go over to server settings and go over to roles, and you can just copy the ID of each role. Now I already have that already, so I'll show you how I'm going to handle it this way. So I'm going to go ahead and just right up top over here, I'll go ahead and just paste it here. So what this is, it's basically just an object with properties, and each role name maps to the role ID. So you have blue maps to the role ID for blue. You have red maps to the role ID of red, right? All you got to do is just literally copy and paste the ID from here, like that, and just literally paste it there like that, okay? I'm going to actually just make this all lowercase. Okay. Pink. Actually, you know what? Let me actually leave that as uppercase, actually, because they're constants. Might as they should be uppercase. Okay. So now that we have our role IDs, what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and get the actual role from the guild. And to do this, let's first declare a variable. We're going to reference the interaction object. The interaction object has the guild property. Okay. And again, like I said, make sure you also have the guild intent enabled. Otherwise, you're going to actually get errors if you try to reference stuff like from the cache and stuff. Okay. So just make sure you have the guild intent enabled. So interaction.guild, and we're going to reference the roles property, and we're going to reference the cache. So this is the guild role manager, and we're going to call the get method, and we're just going to pass in the ID. Now here's the nice part, because we're inside the interaction event, right? And the button interaction is going to have a custom ID. It's always going to buttons are always going to have custom IDs, right? And so what we could do is we can actually reference roles, and then, for example, right, we need to get blue, green, pink, purple, and red. But instead, we can actually just pass the custom ID of the interaction, okay? Because we know that this is going to be a button at all times, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pass in the interaction.custom ID. So if the custom ID of the button was blue, then it's going to reference roles.blue. But we also need to set this to uppercase because it is an uppercase property. Okay, it's case sensitive, I think. So let's set it to uppercase. And what this will do is this will get us the actual role dynamically. So we don't need to write a whole switch case or an if-else case, right? This will literally just grab the role ID from the constant up top over here from this object, okay? And if the role ID exists, then this role variable will be a role object, and if it doesn't exist, then it will be undefined, okay? So what we do next is we go ahead and check to see if there is no role. Then what we're going to do is we're going to reply to the interaction and say that's role not found, and we'll make the message ephemeral. Okay, there we go. And if the role is found, then all we'll literally do is just add the role to the member. So what we can do is we can just do return interaction.member.roles. Whoops. And then we can just call the add method, and then we just pass in the role, and we know that the role exists. Okay, All right, and after we call the add method, we want to also handle anything that happens afterwards, right? Because this is an asynchronous method call that returns a promise. So what we're gonna do is we'll use .then.catch. So .then and the resolved value of the promise that is returned is a guild member. So when you call .then, the callback function has the guild member object. Okay, and what we can do is we can reply to the interaction. So I'll do that. So I'll do interaction.reply content, and I'll use a template string, and I'll go ahead and say and then I'll do $ curly braces, and I'm gonna go and ping the role. It's not actually gonna mention the role as long as you have the role disabled for it to be mentioned, right? Which I assume that most people do anyways. Like, you don't want the role to be mentioned. So the role was added to you, and I'll also ping the member as well. Okay, and this member variable comes from the callback function inside the then method. Okay, and we're also going to make this method ephemeral, so only the user will see it. Okay, and if there's any issues, oh wait, we're not done yet. Hold on. So yep, after this, we're gonna go outside over here. So this is the .then that's handling the .add method call. So if this is successful, if it resolves, the promise resolves, then it's going to handle this logic over here. And if there's any error that happens from adding the role, we'll call .catch, and we'll also reply to the interaction and just say something went wrong. So say something went wrong. The role was not added to you. We'll ping them. Okay, and yeah, that's pretty straightforward. And I'll also do one more thing just for ourselves is I will also just log the error so we can see it for debugging purposes, okay? So let's go ahead and actually test this out. So let's go ahead and start up our bot right now. And then we'll go into our server. So let's remove any roles that we have. So let's remove all these roles. So it says the role was added to you. Perfect. Red, the red role is added. Green, the green role was added. Pink, the pink role was added. Purple, purple was added. Even if I click on these again, nothing will break. It's just going to obviously not add the role to us because we have it ready. Okay. And let's just say, for example, if I were to remove, let's just say, for example, if I were to remove all of these, right? And if I were to click on them, you're going to see that it says role not found. Obviously, because it's trying to pass an undefined right now, right? Because when we reference roles and then we try to get the role based off of the custom ID, right? It was not retrieved from this object. It actually got undefined, which means that the role itself doesn't exist, right? And it's going to handle this case for us, which is good. And usually this case will happen, like this error will happen over here. Usually that has to deal with the Discord API, or if something goes wrong with adding the role. But at least we handle the case where we know that the role ID is invalid or it's not found, which is good. Okay, so we are pretty much good on that part. And now finally, let's just write one more feature. Let's go ahead and make it so that if the role does exist, it will remove the role from the user. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, what we can do is we can check to see if the user has such roles. How do we do that? Well, we can go ahead and reference, so I'll show you, we can reference interaction.member.roles, and there should be a method that we can call. I'm pretty sure we can call the get method, though I'm not sure why it does not pop up on IntelliSense. Let me actually check the docs real quick. So if we look at the guild member class, we look at roles. Let's look at guild member role manager. I'm not really sure why it doesn't have the get method, but I guess we can reference the cache. But then for some reason it doesn't even It doesn't even recognize the type for some reason, but it's fine. We know that this is a collection. I'm just not sure why it doesn't. I'm not sure why it treats the cache as any though, which is very strange to me. Because you can see over here it says collection, but then over here it says any. This is why I hate JavaScript sometimes, but it's okay. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and let's see. Well, we know that the role exists, so we'll pass in the role ID. Let's see. Actually, I think what we could do is instead of calling .get, we can actually call the .has method, and we'll assign this to a variable called has role, and then we'll say if has role, then we'll go ahead and we'll just write a console log member already has role. And then what we'll do is instead of just like saying, oh, you already have this role already, we'll just remove the role from them. So I'll go ahead and do this. So if they have the role, we can just copy this. And instead of adding the role, we want to actually call the delete method. There should be a delete method on here. Give me 1 second. Let me check on this again. Remove. Yeah, it's actually called remove. So let's do remove. And we can just pass in the role resolvable. So that can either be a role, an array of roles to remove, or the ID of the role. And everything is going to look the same. So instead of the role was added to you for the message, we'll just say the role was removed from you. And then we'll just say the role was not removed from you if something was wrong. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So you know what, I'm just going to remove this, and I'm going to remove these curly braces because we already have the return statement. So if has role return, otherwise it will just add the role. Okay, so this logic should work. Let's go ahead and test it out. I'll just log the has role over here. And I'll also just make this an if else. Might as well. So if has role, else there's no role, then we'll add the role. So if the role does exist, we'll remove it. If the role doesn't, I'm sorry, if the member has the role, we'll remove the role from them. If they don't have the role, we'll add the role to them. Let's test this out. So let's run the bot again. Okay, so we have all the roles. So let's go ahead and try this out. So the blue role was removed to you. It should say from you. We can fix that. Let's remove the red role now. The red role was removed. You can see that the roles are being removed. If I click on blue again, it gets added back. If I click on it again, it gets removed. Perfect. Let's remove green, pink, and purple. And you can see that I don't have the roles anymore, and I can literally add any role I want, and it just works fine. So this logic is great. And of course, if the role did not exist, it would tell us that. So that is going to be pretty much it for this tutorial. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. And if you need any additional help, please feel free to join my Discord server. The link is in the description. And like I said, all the code will be on a GitHub repository. So thank you once again, and I will see you all in my next episode. Peace out.